Yes, James. I think perfect. We're online, and thank you for recording this again. Obviously, there was a little connectivity issue, and I really don't want to miss out on this interesting presentation and the interesting work that you've done. So please, you'll have to just introduce yourself again and just go through with the presentation. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. My name is James Mang'erere. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and I've been in practice, law practice for the last 27 years, but I'm also a mediator. I'm a certified professional mediator, and I'm also a mediation trainer. I'm certified by a number of organizations. I also sit as a board member in the International Mediation Institute, Netherlands. I'm in the panel of United Nations Ombudsman Mediators. I'm also a distinguished fellow of the International Academy of Mediators. Those are some of the descriptions I can talk about. So I'm not saying I'm an expert in this culture business, but I can tell you what we do here and what I have learned so far from the experience I've had in practicing mediation for these 20-something years now. So I'll be going through my presentation at the same time trying to elaborate. So I'll not be sticking strictly to my presentation. I'll reach a point where I'll also give you a few examples of what happens on the ground with some of the elaborations that are required so far. So I'll start with the presentation that I have right now. So in our country, or in East Africa, mediation has got a very long history, and we can go back to so many years. Our ancestors started mediating. But mediation here comes in different forms. It all depends on the nature of the conflict and also the culture being practiced. Though people might look at Africa and think it's just one culture, Africa has so many tribes, and these tribes have different cultures. So in East Africa, we have different cultures within East Africa itself. Therefore, every mediation that we do depends on those specific cultures. So in Kenya, for example, mediation is compulsory. People resolve disputes through mediation, especially on problems that occur within the family setup. So conflicts are seen differently in this part of the world. They are seen in a social context. They are not seen as isolated events. When conflicts occur, they involve the whole family, and they involve all relevant background information that involves the past disputants themselves. So during mediation, we don't only discuss about the consequences of the parties that the parties look at. We also look at the consequences to the family, their own families. We are social animals. That social context is what really involves conflict here. So when a conflict affects one member of the family, it affects all. So we look at it from the social context that I've just said. Now, the traditional objective of our mediation is to soothe our hurt feelings. Conflict hurts people's feelings. There is the injury to the feelings of the parties, and the parties have to reach a compromise. Even now, in our country, we are heading towards elections. And after every elections, those people lose the elections, they have their feelings injured. And that happens right from the community level. The best way to resolve this is through the process of mediation. Having people start to talk to each other again is the most important part of it. When people are not talking to each other, then we have a problem. So what even community mediators do is to create an environment where people start talking to each other again. They compromise because they have a future relationship because we live in a setup where we're not isolated. We are social animals. So we need to resolve our conflict so that our future relationship can continue. Our purpose is to foster that future relationship that we're talking about. So the values that we uphold in Africa, in our African context or in Kenyan context in mediation, are the African humanistic values. And our values are different, totally different from what you can see in either Europe or in America. We have different values completely. Like now in this part of Africa, when you greet adults and you are younger, you greet them with both arms, firmly, as a sign of respect. Some of them will touch your head as a form of blessing. Some of these things you can't do them out there. So we have some different values that we really will uphold in this area. So dispute resolution in Kenya involves families as well as neighbors. And the people who usually help these people to resolve these disputes are the elders. Elders are the people who are involved in public negotiations. So individual conflicts are seen as affecting the order of the group or affecting families. And the family members are supposed to be guarantors, especially when agreements have been reached. So execution is not really a problem, because once agreements have been reached within families, the other family members will be the guarantors of those particular agreements. Now, the basis of settling of disputes is reconciliation. We don't value punishment or retribution. I can give you a very good example of a case, and that's what I'm telling you. It's only in this community mediation that we have permanent solutions to disputes. There is a case where somebody sold their ancestral land in part of the coast part of Kenya, the coastern part of Kenya, coastal province. Somebody sold their ancestral land without informing their wives and children, because they considered that the land belongs to the man, therefore not the family. So they sold the land without informing their family. So this man unfortunately died. When he died, during his burial, the purchaser of the land appeared with a title deed. And he told the family, please finish your mourning and carry your belongings and live in peace. I do not want to evict you unceremoniously from this piece of land. The family told them, in this place, we don't sell ancestral land. So we don't value the document that you have. The guy went to the chief of the area and told the chief, I have been very kind to this family to tell them that they are sitting on my land and I would like them to live in peace, and they have refused to live. The chief told this man that we don't sell ancestral land here. You would have asked before you did the transaction. So this guy left with no option, went to court. He filed a suit in court in a place known as Voi. He got the court papers and served the family. The family refused to respond. They didn't even file any documents in court. So this gentleman went to court and got a judgment. He applied for a decree, and he requested the court to allow the police officers to accompany him to evict this family from their piece of land. Now, the community heard about that, and they said that cannot happen. So what they did, they heard that the police officers were coming with auctioneers and some home boys to come and evict the family. So the members of the family and the community members gathered with crude weapons, and they waited for the police. So when the police arrived with the auctioneers and the home boys, they saw a huge multitude of villagers armed with crude weapons waiting for them. And they told the police officers, we know today you have not come here because you want us to talk. You have come here because you want us to fight. So let's fight, then we can talk later. The officer commanding that station said, no, we cannot shed blood for the property of one person. So he told the owner of that property, the person who had the documents, go back to court and tell the courts we are incapable of executing the court orders. So this guy could not do a thing with his court order, the judgment, and with his title deed. So he walked around with those documents for almost 5 years, until the time when my institution partnered with the European Union, who are all sponsoring a training for community elders. And we trained community elders. And that's the moment this guy now approached the chief again and told the chief, can I be assisted? I've heard that there are community elders who have been trained here. Can I be assisted by those community elders? And the chief said, now I cannot be able to give you a feedback on that. Most probably the best I can do is to ask the elders to come together and see if they can listen to your plea. When the elders came together, they said, well, if you still respect the elders, you have realized that the courts did not help you. So what do? Bring that title deed here. So he brought the title deed. Bring the court orders here. We ask you to tear them into pieces. And he tore them into pieces in front of the elders. And the elders then told him, we have community elders here, community mediators who have been trained. Can you approach the family with these community mediators? Whatever you agree, it will be respected by the elders. And that's exactly what they did. They went with the two mediators. Within a span of about 2 weeks, they had come up with an agreement that the family was to give this guy a small piece of land towards the road, about 50 by 100. The guy said, well, for me, this is good enough for me because it clears my tears. I would have lost the whole piece of property. But now with this agreement, at least I have a portion of it. And that's where this gentleman settled. Later on, there was a relationship between his son and one of the daughters of that family, and the relationship flourished. Now, did the court help this guy? No, they didn't help him. Who helped him? The community mediators. So you see, it's only through community mediation that you can have permanent solutions to disputes. So the Kenyan style of group mediation holds so many advantages to parties because members of the family and their neighbors can check if what they have agreed on is being done. What they have been committed to is being done. Now, in the pro-colonial days, we had so many principles guiding conflict resolution in the country. Culture is very interesting because I was the first time I was invited to resolve a community dispute. I had to understand, first of all, what the culture of those two communities were. Even the way you are welcomed into that community is very important. I had attended one mediation in the northern part of Kenya, and the way they welcomed me was very strange, but I had been told that they welcome people differently. So what happened when they saw I had arrived as a mediator? One of the ladies took a cup and went straight and milked a goat, right from the goat's udder, and brought the milk to me. You know, they wanted to test if I have accepted them the way they are. So if I don't take the milk, it means I've rejected them. So I had to take the milk under very strenuous circumstances, but with a smile on my face, just to ensure that I was accepted. That is the reason why it's important to understand the culture of the people you are approaching, even within our own territory. So those who wanted their conflict resolved were required to have confidence in the tribunal, the people who are appointed, the elders. The tribunal consisted of elders, chiefs, priests, secret cults, and many others. So you had to have confidence in them because it all relied on trust. If you don't trust people who are assisting you in resolving the dispute, there's something wrong. You will not even accept the directions that they will be giving you. So the disputants had to have confidence in them. They had to be ready to submit themselves to the constituted authority. And these authorities that were constituted in conflict resolution, the constitution was done by the chiefs and the elders who were well known or well versed with the customs of the area. So disputants had to take their cases to elders and neighborhood mediators who could be depended upon to resolve those conflicts because they knew the local language, they were familiar with the standards of behavior. Because in every community that we have, they have specific standards of behavior that people have to conform to from one clan to the other. There are some specific behaviors. So mediation here, in this context, is a conflict resolution process that has been very critical in our traditional society. We have had it since time immemorial. In fact, during the training of elders, which I did all over the country after the post-election violence in this country, I had to talk to groups. We have like the Kaya group in the coast. We have the Njuri in the northern part of Kenya. We have the Luya PC elders. All these people, I try to understand from them how they used to carry out their own mediation. And I was surprised that what they did was almost something like quasi-arbitration, because some of these elders sometimes were forced to make decisions. In some instances, ladies were not allowed to appear before the elders, because they were regarded only that they could appear through representation. So I had to change all that by telling them that what about when ladies are also disputants? Do we then create a level playing ground where all disputants are treated equally? So some of these cultures were pariahs to the resolution process, and therefore the people had to be told on how to change or to alter these pariahs, to remove these pariahs to enable these mediations to take place. So the mediators usually endeavor to bring peace and harmony within the society at whatever level of the mediation that they are doing. So our community members used to get mediators from the communities that were concerned in conflict, the societies that were concerned in conflict, the parties that were concerned in conflict. That's where we used to get mediators from. We didn't have people coming from outside. So elders, even now, are respected as trustworthy mediators all over Kenya because they have what we call accumulated experience and wisdom. They say the older you are, the more wiser you become. The older you get, the more wiser you become, and that's what we believe in this country. Their roles depend on traditional circumstances and personalities accordingly. Like now, we have classification of disputes, even within family area. We have land, we have succession, we have marital, and many others, depending on the circumstances of each case. And each group, there are those who are specifically who deal with land disputes, others deal with succession dispute issues to do guardianship, others deal with marital disputes like separation, because there was nothing like divorce in our community. It never existed. Once you married, you married. If you differed with your wife, you had to marry another one and continue with your life. So there was nothing like a person talking about divorce. In fact, divorce is a foreign subject into what has come because of colonialism and the westernization of our culture. Otherwise, there was nothing like divorce. That's why you know most of our parents and grandparents had 2 or 3 wives, because when there was conflict, you were told to leave your wife intact, get another one, and continue with your life if you wanted peace. So divorce was not something that people discussed about in our community. Now, the roles of these elders included pressurizing, making recommendations and giving assessments, conveying suggestions on behalf of the parties. Sometimes, this concept we call shuttle diplomacy existed in our local, in our mediation, because parties could be placed in different locations and the elders could move between them, delivering information, something that's now developed to be known as shuttle diplomacy in the modern mediation. Elders could emphasize relevant norms within the society. They would envisage a situation if agreement did not agree, people did not agree. So even these concepts of partner, watna, mlatna existed in our society. The consequences of failing to agree, they existed. And elders would repeat the agreement several times so that people had to stick to their minds, because some of them there was no writing, there was no pen and paper. So the only best way to have people remember what they agreed is to repeat severally about what the parties had agreed. So several Kenyan society relied on pro-colonial times in mediation, and these methods still thrive today. What I've just told you. So it has been suggested that the mediation is better able to deliver authentic justice. In fact, right now, our laws have been amended Even what we have in court right now, we have the Civil Procedure Act, which has been amended to accommodate mediation. The Constitution has been amended to accommodate mediation. We have Article 48 of our Constitution, which talks about access to justice, and it says the state has an obligation to ensure that all citizens have access to justice. There's Article 159, which says you can resolve your disputes in 3 ways: through litigation, through alternative dispute resolution processes, and through traditional dispute resolution mechanisms. There's a case in the northern part of Kenya where the case of Muhammad Abdi versus Republic, you can find it, it's available. You Google Muhammad Abdi versus Republic, where Muhammad Abdi committed murder and he was arrested and placed in custody. But the communities over there, the clans agreed to sit down and talk about it. So they agreed to pay the mother of the mother of the deceased 50 camels. And the 2 communities agreed and the matter was settled. But the police proceeded to take Muhammad Abdi to court. In court, there was no complainant, there was no witness. So the case was called 1 time, 3 times, 3, 4. The judge told the investigating officer and the police in charge to go back and find out what the elders agreed on, write it down and bring it to him. So it was written, it was brought to him, and he converted that into a court judgment. People complained, oh, this is offending the criminal procedure code, the penal code. And he told them, any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. So that judgment is still valid up to now. So you see how traditions are. We can't clean this thing off. In fact, what we can only do is to build upon what already existed by observing or bringing on board what is new. So we have a lot of business to do in this country, especially in trying to educate the public about the process of mediation. And what we have done currently is that we are preparing TV programs so that people can watch a series of mediation on TV in their local language. Because everybody here has always been told that when you have a dispute, everybody tells you, I'll sell my cow and take you to court. And when they come to court, they can't even afford to pay the lawyers themselves. So what we are telling them, don't sell your cow. We are training many, many more mediators in the village through the process of community mediation so that the conflict can be resolved as cheaply and as close as possible to the disputants, especially those ones who are poor and cannot be able to afford the normal justice that we have in our courts. And that's what we are doing. I think that's my presentation.
Thank you, James. I mean, this is like amazing work that you're doing. And I'm saying that this is exactly what the symposium was all about, to bring this out. And this is what needs to be taken to all parts of the world. But luckily, even after colonization, all this has survived. All these traditional things have survived, which is very good because most countries has not happened.
Yeah. No, people here value their traditions very much. They always say that a person who sells his own culture is a slave, and nobody wants to become a slave. Yeah. So there are some communities in Kenya specifically that have kept their culture to the letter. The communities like the Maasai, the Bokot, the Turkana, the Samburu, these people have kept their culture to the letter. Although some of the other communities have had some European influence, the other cultures have been kept in place strongly. And I'm telling you, those people who have kept their culture in place even live longer. You know, the moment we start eating these Western foods and they start enjoying this Western lifestyle, our lives, we live a very short lifespan in this world. Because that's when we start eating this margarine, eating the biscuits and whatever, and we mess up our system. The Maasai, they take blood right from the animal to their system with all its nutrients, something that you cannot be able to do. Some of them even eat raw meat, and they eat herbs from the forest. So you see a person walks a distance of about 200 kilometers a day. And you see, if you adopt the Western style, it means you want to sit on your sofa set and watch TV, eat margarine, take milk. How long are you going to stay on Earth? So our culture, those people who keep our culture intact, have stayed longer, and it really works.
It's very nice that it's been retained. But one thing that I'll introduce you to Isaac a little later. Isaac is in Ghana, enthusiastic young boy, and definitely you have to guide him also. Have you done work in Ghana?
I came there to train with some mediators from Nigeria. It's a time we had a program in Lagos, and then we closed over to Ghana for some training. That was in the year 2001.
Because Ghana, I mean, Isaac in his presentation had brought out some very nice proverbs.
Yes,
So,
yes, I saw them. I've read them all. They're very good, and they are just the same. I can see that we almost share the same culture.
yes,
You know, there is a group we call the Bantu, and Bantu run all the way from Egypt down to South Africa, and we almost share the same thing.
So please guide Isaac. I'm telling you, he's very enthusiastic. He wants to do a lot of things, but he needs good guidance from you. And this is exactly what I'm telling you. This is the kind of things that we have to go out to every country. Isaac will take it there, other people from other places. So I think, but tell me, James, what about the business communities? Is there a special? They have something there?
Yes. We have been training a lot in commercial mediation, and we have an institution in Kenya, in East Africa. It's known as the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators, which is a similar one that is available in Nigeria, I think. And it came from my institution, the Mediation Training Institute East Africa. We came up with that institute where we have a center for mediation, where we have trained mediators who are under very strong code of conduct. So when business people have conflicts, they don't go to court. The first place they bring their conflicts to our center, where we manage those cases. And if there is no agreement now, they are free to find their way to court. But the first line of the dispute resolution usually is commercial mediation that we do. And you'll be surprised that very rarely do cases bypass the center. Most cases are settled within the center. And they have realized that it is cost saving, it maintains their relationship, it does so many things. So people are giving it the first priority before they think about moving to court. So our center is flourishing now.
But what about the traditional in business communities? Traditionally, is there a separate system that they have?
Yes. In fact, you know, previously people used to swear. They used to stand before a stone somewhere, face a particular stone or face the sun and swear that if I have taken your money, I'm going to pay you. If I don't pay you, may I die from this specific thing. They used to swear facing either a mountain or a stone, and those things are still intact. For those people who cannot afford the conventional systems, they still use that, and in fact, they keep their promises. They don't even need to go to the extent of execution. But people respect, once they have stood before the stone or they have faced the sun or a specific mountain, they are afraid of that. So that used to be their God previously, before they got the convention of the Bible and other things. People used to believe in a God. You know, God existed before the white man came in with the Bible. So they still fear the previous deities. They call them deities. They fear those deities and they use them. They use them to regulate the promises that they give to their neighbors, especially in the business environment, especially in the village.
But quite a lot of this still exists, or has modernization?
Yes, it exists. These things never die. People can be educated. You know, they always say you can take a person out of the village, but you can never take a village out of him. So The village still stays with him.
We
He
need,
can wear a suit and come to the city, but when he goes back to the village, he's the same person, you know.
this is what we need. We need that connection there. But you also spoke about these secret cults. What are these secret
Yes.
cults?
Well, these are traditional secret cults, and they exist in our African society, and I'm sure they are also available in Ghana, West Africa. Those are people go there to have their disputes resolved. For example, if somebody has stolen something, you will find somebody with a stick and some strings around it. They will start pulling that stick by mentioning the names of the people who are there. Once the strings stick, they don't move. They stop at that point. They'll know that this is the person who has stolen. They've never gotten it wrong.
Wow.
And it still works.
Not bad at all. This is what we need. All this court system. Why have we created all that? So the interesting methods that you have there. But now, but let me also ask Isaac to, first of all, he should introduce himself to you. Isaac, please introduce yourself. And if you want to ask him something.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Vikram, and thank you, Brother James, for the wonderful presentation. My name is Isaac Asari from Ghana. I'm based in the Accra, the capital city of Ghana. We are into training of ADR practitioners, and also we are into the practice as well. We are looking at access to justice using mediation to assist the people who cannot access the normal justice delivery system, so that we can use mediation to assist them. That's our first point of call. So when I heard about what you are doing in Kenya, is really an encouraging thing, and I wanted to learn more from you. That's why I decided to join this afternoon. So I want to congratulate you on what you're doing in Kenya and to keep it up. So we'll keep in touch so that we'll be able to learn and share more ideas on the way forward, how we can do more in Africa. Thank you, Vikram.
Asante, karibu sana. We say karibu sana, which means welcome in Kiswahili.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look, I'll tell you what, James.
I've been to Uganda, but I haven't been to Kenya.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, James, what happened was that initially, when I sent out this information about the symposium, Isaac was one person. He created a form and he at least circulated. How many people it went to, I don't know, but at least he created a form asking people in your tribes, in your whatever groups, how do you go about dispute resolution? So I thought that at least this guy is trying to, in some way, reach out and find out, and he needs support from a person like you. And there is so much that needs to be done in this area, which I think hasn't really happened in most countries. But where all have you worked now? Kenya, and you said
Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and even in some parts of Southern Sudan. So I've been in 5 countries, and Zambia also.
But did you find a similar? It's similar there. Everywhere it's
nothing. So no big difference. Even in Malawi, it's not the big deal. There's no big difference there. And I'm also heading to Zimbabwe and Lesotho, those areas. That's where I'm heading to, try to train mediators and learning more about their culture. So I intend to cover at least about 15 countries in Africa, just to try to find out how their issues are done. And I'm writing books out of it so that I know how mediation works in different cultures.
Yeah, because that experience, I think, will be very important in every part of the world. Because I don't say, look, I'm telling you, if you like, the way I look at it is that traditionally, I think societies grew in the same way. I mean, it's not that, although they were not connected to each other, but finally, I think there is some basic that remains the same. But interestingly, let me show you one thing that Isaac had sent. This is the map of Africa. And I was amazed at this, that 250 million people here, and this entire area, there are about 250 million people.
Yeah.
So how
we are concentrated in Nigeria and Ghana? I think that's where we have the greatest population.
That's amazing. But what about this area? What's happening here?
Well, I think one thing, war. There was war, so many people died. And then there were a lot of diseases. So because the most populations were eliminated because of disease. There's war, and then there was drought also. Drought also eliminated so many people. And then most people from there were taken as slaves to the other parts of the world. And I think that's really what affected the population.
So basically Kenya is somewhere here.
Yes.
Yeah. And what is up here?
I think that is Somalia. You're talking about Somalia and where? I think Kenya could also be there.
Kenya should be here. Kenya should be here.
Kenya is there. Kenya is there after Somalia and some parts of that area.
So
but I think those areas are well populated. Like Kenya, we are a highly populated country. So many people here. We don't have enough land. We have too many.
No, but I think the main thing is that,
but not as many as India, because I've been to India and I know crossing the street was a problem, because they had to cross the road so that people can pass fast before the vehicles do.
Exactly. So it's a different world.
China is even higher. China, there are more people than in India by far.
Yeah.
If you go to Beijing, you will be surprised. You will think there are no human beings in India when you go to Beijing, because the population in Beijing is out of this world. There are too many people.
But James, what about this aspect about them deciding for the people, telling them what to do? How did you explain to them? I mean, how did it work with them? What did they?
Well, the issue is that that was not mediation. I told them that's not pure mediation, because mediation itself, the context of mediation, is to empower people to make their own decisions. So the moment you start making decisions for the parties, you're making it an adjudicatory process. Just like a court is arbitration. Yep. So I told them, can you find a formula? Can you blend what you already have in the judicial system by also empowering parties to be able to make their own decisions, educating them to make their own decisions? And I trained them, and they blended what they had with the formal system. And it worked very well, and they're using it right now. They're empowering people to make decisions, which really is working for them, even in the traditional setup that they have.
But they were okay with
some of the cultures that were very hard. So I try to tell them that some cultures are abhorrent to decency. So those cultures that are abhorrent to decency, those ones we can be able to relegate them to ensure that we create an environment where it'll be easier for parties who are not powerful enough, because the issue also of power imbalance is an issue in our traditional system that they need to work along, because some people are weak, some are strong, some are rich, some are poor, some are housewives, some are breadwinners, some are employers, some are employees. The element of power imbalance can really be a challenge in our traditional dispute resolution system. So they need also to blend that, the system, ensure that power is well balanced.
Yeah, but you felt that they were willing to change, and they did change.
They are adopting, and some of them have changed. And I'm happy when I go back around the country to look at the traditional systems. These systems are working, and the elders are happy. The way they are blending what's good from the conventional system with what is good in the traditional system is working for them.
Ideal combination. But like you mentioned one that they were not willing to have women as mediators.
Yes. I went into a place where I was accompanied by a lady who was a senior police officer. I had trained her to be a professional mediator. So I wanted to accompany her to resolve her traditional disputes. The elders refused. They said in their culture, a lady cannot stand in front of them. So she had to sit down on the ground, not on the chair, but on the ground. And the lady refused. So the mediation failed. And then later on, I had to go back and try as much as possible to educate those elders about the space for the women in conflict resolution in a traditional system. And they adopted that later on. It worked very well.
Like culturally, they say that a lot of places, the women, even like you said, even they were disputants, they were not allowed to speak. They did not have a voice. So that
they would not stand. They would not stand in front of the elders. And I had to keep on training people to change that. They had to look for people to represent them. And even if they were brought in front of the elders, they had to look away. They can't look at the elders face eye to eye. They had to look away just for the purpose of ensuring that they present their idea. But those were very hard traditions that I told them, some of them were not really helping, even in resolving disputes. And slowly by slowly, I convinced the elders that they should allow the ladies also as disputants, as human beings, to get an opportunity to present their cases before them like anybody else, because unless they create a level playing ground for both of them, then there is that element of discrimination offends even the same principles of natural justice that they intend to keep at the traditional level.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm now as of course, as societies, whatever modernization or whatever is happening around now,
Yes.
in the households, obviously women would be talking about the fact that their voice at everything that they want, and they don't want that traditional system. So are those things breaking up? Are those societies breaking up? Is there any changes you're seeing there?
Yes, some of them are and some are not. You know, there are traditions where you cannot at all. The challenge we are having is that most ladies are being educated now and they are turning to be breadwinners. That is really a challenge that is challenging the tradition. You know, traditionally, a man is supposed to be the head of the house, and the lady is supposed to obey and be submissive to the man. That's our traditions. But you know, this submissiveness or submission can only work when a person is in authority. Now you find sometimes that ladies are getting educated. They are now earning more than men do. And they are in control of the budget, of the purse. So it challenges our traditional system. And that's why you see most men are finding it untenable. And marriages cannot be sustained because the roles are turning over. Now, ladies are getting empowered. They're becoming breadwinners. And men, most of them are being taken over. They are now housekeepers. So the roles are reversing, and that is really affecting the social ecosystem. And that's really becoming a serious source of conflict.
How are we going to take this forward? How are we going to make sure?
We are working on that, and we're trying to tell them that, you know, we're telling them people should understand marriage also from the traditional system. Having money is not all that it is, because marriages that we have been able to be sustained are those marriages where there is some level of reciprocity and respect, because the lady may have the money, and I've seen ladies who earn a lot of money, they bring it back to the family and they give it to the man and tell the man, we are a family, can we organize this money together with you? Because that's what is. The only problem is that if a lady earns more and wants to use that as a muscle to put down the man, that would really cause serious friction in the family. And those are the issues that usually are destroying families right now. So in our traditional way of resolving conflicts, we try as much as we can to create an environment where we respect the tradition, where we understand the lady is earning more than the man, but those are circumstances that have led them to that. That does not change that the social and the traditional way of looking at the family. So that respect has to remain. In fact, the more money the lady earns, the more the family lives better, and the more they should be happy. It shouldn't be the cause of conflict. They should not create it as an environment that can create conflict. So we're trying to educate them. I do that all the time, and especially what the problem usually is communication. When people are very good communicators, money will not cause them the kind of problems that they have. When they have problems with communication, then they are easily tempted when they are financially endowed than the other spouse to create a wedge between them and therefore be a serious source of conflict. But
But
we are
what
working
about
on that
but
slowly
what
to
about
educate.
urbanization? I mean,
Yeah.
urbanization. What are the issues that you're seeing there?
Urbanization, most people are educated these days, unless, we have a generation that is getting finished. The older generation is moving, and the new generation is taking over. And most of these guys are highly educated, and they have blended into the Western style of living. But now, because of that Western style of living, it is creating more conflicts than we even expected. People who conform the traditional way of looking at marriage, the traditional way of handling their finances, usually they don't get into trouble. But the moment we watch a lot of TV, and there's a lot of influence from the soap operas that we watch, the movies, and we want to apply what we are seeing on TV to our daily lives, we get into problems. Definitely, you cannot escape the kind of conflicts that people are facing right now. That's why, if you look of late, you listen to our systems, men are killing their wives and then committing suicide.
Seriously?
And it's becoming a serious problem almost everywhere. Once men have been demeaned to a level where they cannot be able to hold, they will say, you will not stay, you will not live. So I kill you and I kill myself, so police officers will not be able to reach me. But that's not the best way of resolving conflicts. That's why we want people to go back to their factory settings. They need to find a way, and the factory settings is looking at life in a more traditional way. Then we can survive the vagaries of westernization. Otherwise, if we subject ourselves to the vagaries of westernization, we want to be destroyed, because that's not the way our parents and our grandparents grew. Families were glued together because of the way we were brought up using our traditions. So the earlier parties get to the factory settings, the better. Otherwise, most families will be destroyed if we follow the Western system that people are seeing on TV. It's going to destroy them.
But how are we going to stop them from doing that? Is there anything that have you? I mean, I'm sure you've worked with some people on this. What is the kind of feedback that you've got?
Now we're having a program right now of educating, especially there are institutions that usually have come up to educate parties, especially before they get married. Some of the churches, we know some bishops have requested us to talk to couples right before they marry within the church or within the mosque. We're trying to talk to them within the temple. We talk to these couples before they get married. And so we educate them on good communication skills. We also have programs on TV. Like now, there's a program I used to have on TV. I stopped recently because I'm too busy. Anybody who wants to look at that program can go to the internet, www.familymediaonline.com, www.familymediaonline.com. And then you double click on a video we call The Mediator. I used to educate the public in conflict competency. What we call conflict competency is being able to resolve conflict, to respond to conflict constructively. When people respond to conflict constructively, they don't approach the conflict blindly. They approach it strategically. So when they approach conflict strategically, we say they are conflict competent. And I have always been teaching people on how to become conflict competent. And it has really assisted so many, because the way you approach conflict at the time when it's happening, during the event, and at the end of it will determine the trajectory of the conflict. People are conflict competent usually when their hot buttons are touched, they usually respond constructively. People are conflict incompetent when their hot buttons are touched, they respond destructively. And the conflict can escalate into something that they did not expect. So conflict competence usually helps, especially couples. And conflict competence is not a foreign word. It has always been there during our traditional systems, because our elders used to stay with young boys in some grass-thatched houses. While you are growing, you used to stay with elders. And the small girls could stay with women, and they would be taught about family life, about how to handle your husband, about how to handle your wife. By the time people came to get married, they understand what each person's position is. So what the elders were teaching them is what we call conflict competency, and it worked.
Because the changes that are happening, James, are happening everywhere. These issues that are coming up everywhere. Even in the symposium, so many people have spoken about this. Of course, one aspect was colonization affecting traditional dispute resolution systems as one. Urbanization seems to be another thing because elders are not in the picture now. So that aspect. So how can we at least in urban areas, is there some kind of community mediation centers or anything that you've created there?
Yes, we have. In fact, we have community mediation. We have, like in Kenya, we have a Kisumu Mediation Center. We have Nakuru Mediation Center, Kisii Mediation Center, Coast Mediation Center, and all Meru Mediation Center. All these mediation centers we have created have systems of, sometimes even apart from resolving conflicts, they have what we call outreach programs. They go back to the village, to the churches, to teach people about how to handle conflict where it takes place and how to approach conflicts whenever they occur. So they also train elders and community leaders around, apart from helping resolve conflicts within those areas. So we have established those community mediation centers, and they are working. They're doing their job very well. Sometimes they get sponsorship, and they have outreach programs where they put people together in a room for 5 days. They teach them about how to approach specific conflicts in those areas. They customize their role plays to conflict in that specific area. Also incorporating the traditional systems that have been working for a while. So there's a lot of work going on right now, especially in East Africa. We have mediators in Uganda doing all the same stuff. Mediators in Tanzania, you're doing the same stuff. So we are really working. Since this is a new concept, we started recently because we have very people who are really enthusiastic. They are moving in to ensure that we cover enough ground and we teach the public. In fact, they use a section of the Bible which says, "My people perish because of lack of knowledge." So we don't want people to perish. We want people to survive because they have knowledge on how to resolve their own conflicts. So
but what is the structure of these community centers, mediation? How do they work? I mean, in terms of financially, and then the mediators and all that, how does that whole thing work?
The issue is that they usually write proposals to organizations who sponsor them. There are both local and international organizations that sponsor them financially. Number two, they have what we call case managers, people who stay. There are administrators and case managers who stay in those community centers. They have case identification processes. They have a strong code of conduct. They have case management systems. So they have a panel of mediators who they have trained, who are available at the very close call to be called in and help resolve conflicts. They have evaluation, monitoring and evaluation systems. And they also hold sometimes what we call mediation weeks, where they offer free service, pro bono service to members of the community, so they can learn that this process indeed work, so that they can then refer their cases when they have such disputes. They work closely with the police, with the community administration, the county government, so that at least these people know that there are people here who are qualified who can help us resolve disputes. And then, because we know members in the village cannot afford the services of these people, so what usually happens is that this sponsorship that we have, you get the sponsorship from these other organizations. That is the amount you pay the mediators who hold the ground to resolve those conflicts, because they give free services to the members of the community.
But at the end of the day, how much does a mediator actually earn money? Because the problem that we are facing everywhere is that the mediators are not really getting what they should get.
We have a remuneration order, especially for this conventional mediation. We have a remuneration order depending on your experience. You can either charge per hour, you charge a flat rate, or you charge a percentage of the value of the subject matter of the dispute. So we have regulated the way they charge their fee. So it's not a struggle. They usually have somewhere where they can discuss when they are charging. But when they go to the community, they don't charge any fee. We know what we pay them, or the community center pays them. Even our courts, when they do court and next mediation here, clients don't pay. It's the courts that pay the mediators. So we want to make sure that there's no we don't put any liability to the clients for now. They will still be receiving this free pro bono service until they understand and they appreciate that these systems work. And slowly by slowly, a fee can then be introduced from them. But currently, we depend on sponsorships and the government so that people can get that payment down to the mediators. So mediators don't work for free. They are paid.
But they get decent amount. They get a decent amount.
Yeah, they're paid. Like now, there are the cases where you're paid up to $500 an hour. So if you do that big case, especially a commercial case, you're paid $500 an hour. By the time you complete the case, you have made good money, just like in arbitration.
Okay, but that's one thing that generally you're hearing from all over the world, that mediators in the court system definitely not getting too much. That's one thing. Otherwise,
Yes.
also, in the community mediation centers, a lot of them are putting the time for free. So that's happening a lot of places. So if there is a remuneration system which is proper, I think, because we need lots of good mediators in the world, we need to get them out. So,
Yes.
but what is the legal structure in Kenya in terms of mediation? Is it regulated, or is there anything there?
We have a bill in Parliament which was introduced, is in the Senate right now, which was meant to regulate. It's in the third reading right now. But in the court annex mediation is done under judiciary. We have what we call the Mediation Accreditation Committee, which sets standards and also interviews and accredits court annex mediators only, not private mediators. And is the one that also pays them. So that within the courts is regulated already. But outside private mediation, there's a bill that came up, but it has got problems already. But because it was drafted by people probably who are not well versed with what mediation is. But soon, after discussion, I hope, and the amendments are made, it may be adopted into an act of parliament, in which case it can regulate mediation. But what I'm not of the opinion that mediation should be regulated, because if you look at America and other places, mediation is not regulated. Yep. Private mediation is not regulated. You get a credentializing body, like what we have known as the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators. This credentializing body will have a panel of mediators who are under very strict code of conduct, who conform to the regulations of that specific credentializing body. And therefore, institutions that require quality mediators will come to those credentializing bodies and receive names of mediators and pick a mediator from there who is under a specific body. But if you put generally under an act of parliament, there's a lot of malpractice that will arise out of that, because there's corruption. Corruption will set in, and many other things that will mess up the profession itself. So I'm not for the idea for regulation, and I've been against it for a very long time. And that's exactly what's happening in America, Australia, and in Canada. There's no regulation. There's no act.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have an act in India that regulates mediation and how it works.
We have received. We have a very, very good act which doesn't regulate anything. It just gives you the protection of confidentiality without prejudice. We call it conciliation. So under that, at least the good part is there is no concept of regulating who can be a conciliator. You get all the protection required. But there is, like you were saying, in Kenya, there is this whole move to get this bill has been drafted. Here also, there is a bill being drafted. Let's see what it comes out. Maybe, like you said, a lot of people draft these bills. They don't even know what they're looking at. But in the entire system, then whatever, law that comes up, the traditional systems would still get the constitutional validity, even if a law on mediation comes up tomorrow. Do you think that will happen?
Well, I don't know, but we are still talking. The laws have been amended to accommodate mediation. We have the Constitution amended to accommodate mediation. We have the Civil Procedure Act amended to accommodate mediation. Now that bill they are talking about is what is delayed. But the laws have already been amended to accommodate mediation, and we're working very well, because a mediation agreement is binding on the parties. And once a mediation agreement has been adopted and converted into a judgment of the court, there is no appeal. There is no appeal against a mediation agreement. So that protects it enough.
No, because I really like this aspect that you said, this judge who has read that and said the Constitution gives that support to this whole concept of the traditional method of mediation. So that part of it, I think, is really important, because even if you come out with a law tomorrow to regulate that traditional mediation, at least it will in some way violate the constitution. So I think this is what other places have to look at, the constitutions, because we also have a certain clause on this which I don't think has been used in this context. So perfect, James. It's really nice talking to you. And if you just want to just concluding remarks or anything that you want to give us.
No, I think what we need to do, and I've always told people, is to have a global community of mediators where we can share resources and promote each other. Because there's a lot you can learn from Asia. There's a lot you can learn from Europe. There's a lot we can learn from America. All these institutions that we have joined, the International Academy of Mediators, the IMI, and others, we've joined them because we want to ensure that we can keep on helping each other and promoting each other to ensure that we can maintain a good quality of mediators, and that we also don't forget about our traditions and culture, because that's where we came from. So if we can have people who can blend the two, the conventional mediation system and our cultural way of resolving conflicts, and maintain a good quality of practice within the world, maintain this social network that we have, we'll promote ourselves and promote the next generations. And that's the kind of advice that I can give people.
Very nice. That's a very positive note. I really like that. Which is, well, look, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to connect people together. Of course, I'm not creating an institution. I just want to do it individually, because there are a lot of institutions doing what they have to. I am trying to put it individually, trying to just put people together, and like what you are doing, get more people who are doing similar things. Let's make a group of that kind of thing, activity. Let's do that together. So I'll keep growing this with you and get more people involved. And there is so much to be done. So thank you very much, James. Very nice of you to do this again, so that, because there were